G'day guys and gal, Warhammer is like McDonald's. Everything is supersized. The ships, the wars, the soldiers, the daddy issues. So it's not much surprise that the Emperor's Palace, the single most important building in the galaxy, is the size of a fucking country. No expense was spared. A stunning palace made of every conceivable and inconceivable building material, able to house billions of workers. It also doubles as the galaxy's most secure fortress, allowing the loyalists to hold off a traitor host, backed up by the Dark Mechanicum, countless cultists, endless demons, and the strength of 8 traitor legions against the mere 3 loyalist legions. Without the Imperial Palace, there is no Imperium. But what actually makes it so important? What would happen if it stopped existing? And what features of it are actually so impressive? Before we get started, some of you still think skincare means splashing your face with cold water and hoping for the best, but that's like going into the warp without your Gellerfields on. So I've partnered up with Geology to show you how to actually avoid the dangers of the warp, aka have nicer skin. Geology is an award-winning dermatologist-backed skincare and hygiene brand that actually tells you what to do, because they know blokes like us don't have a clue. You do a quick survey, then they ship a custom routine straight to your door, and boom, you're on the path to looking like you didn't just crawl out of Nurgle's asshole. They've got salicylic acid face wash, SPF morning cream, a retinol night cream, under eye cream for the under eye bags, even a vitamin C plus E ferulic serum. The real stuff that actually works. Just ask your girlfriend. Oh wait. I've been using Geology for years. Now I'm less oily, more even skin tone, and somehow I look better now than I did at 21. Which shouldn't really be a thing. And it's not just your face. Geology also has a range of deodorants, body washes, and shampoos that smell great. Awesome for dismantling the stinky Warhammer stereotype. So stop wasting time looking like a Twinkie Plague Marine. Use code Majorkill80 or scan the QR code to get 80% off your personalized skincare trial set, plus a free gift and up to 50% off add-ons. Your skin will thank you, and so will anyone else who has to look at it. Cheers to Geology for sponsoring this video. Today we'll go over the Imperial Palace, detailing its construction, its purpose, its girth, and the key lore moments involving it. And let's get into it. Every kingdom needs its capital, its seat of power. This allows its rulers to have easy access to its different gubernatorial wings, making decisions happen faster. It's like a beating heart of an empire. After all, an empire doesn't end when its emperor dies, it ends when its palace is toppled. The emperor was at both a very humble, practical man and an extremely ostentatious flexer. He made his custodians look like works of art. He made his own armor, and bearing that of a true emperor, he made his palace this monumental piece of beauty. And although I'm sure he liked the aesthetic, the reason for being so extra and flashy wasn't based on his own personal desires. He didn't do it for himself, he did it for the Imperium. What would inspire the masses more? A sophisticated bunker network, guarded by warriors in unornate grey plate, led by an emperor with a shaved head and unmarked power armor. Or a giant fucking golden shining beacon with a flaming sword guarded by stunning golden Auramite warriors in a giga palace the size of a country. It was designed to inspire awe and demonstrate loyalty. The custodians themselves even said that they would be more than happy to wear basic ugly armor, with others remarking the emperor only puts on his golden warrior aspect as a way to ensure respect and loyalty from the Primarchs, who themselves would only respect an awe-inspiring powerful figure. It was all calculated. So now we know the why, let's look at the how. When the Emperor won the Unification Wars, he begun work on the palace. He already had been doing his works within the Himalayan mountains in large extensive bases for many years, but it was time to go turbo mode. The Himalayan mountains were flattened to create a flat foundation for the palace to be built upon. The greatest engineers on the planet were brought in to begin the construction, with it being considered the greatest priority. Once Mars was brought on board, the construction would ramp up even further. There were 3 main sections that needed to be completed: the outer palace, the inner palace, and then the throne room. Each of these was its own beast. The outer palace was like a mega ultra city, layers and layers of walls, each containing millions of people. Some areas were richer than others. One area was even called the Petitioner's City, more or less a slum formed from a queue of countless people attempting to get an audience with the High Lords to plead their case. The inner palace, also called the Sanctum, was where the business happened. This is where all the major factions of the Imperium had their head office. The Custodes had the Tower of Hegemon. The Navigator houses enjoyed safety here, and basically anyone in the Sanctum was there fulfilling a function, either administration or otherwise. It wasn't a tourist destination. Even rich people wouldn't generally be in there, more so just in the richer districts of the outer palace. Then, almost as importantly of all, there was the throne room in which the Golden Throne was located. fabricated. A marvelous device using a mix of Dark Age and Eldar technology, a psychic amplifier that allowed the Emperor to direct the Astronomicon and overall just increase his psychic ability. When the throne was stable and wasn't being used to rip open the Eldar webway for mankind's use, the Emperor was able to psychically link to it and use it even though he was light years away in the galaxy leading the crusade. Think of the throne room as the Imperium's beating heart, as the Astronomicon is the beacon in which all Imperial ships used to travel the warp. Without it, there would be no true warp travel and all would be darkness and AIDS and shit. The palace's defenses were prepared by none other than Rogel Dorn himself, who had made nearly impenetrable even before the heresy broke out. He had woven the defenses of the palace into the architecture itself. Things that look like stunning ornaments could easily be converted into a fortified gun emplacement, ornate floor tiling actually allowing for tight shield locking, corridors funneled into amazing atriums that double as kill zones. When the heresy broke out and Rogel turned the palace into a literal fortress, it became an absolute Goliath of a structure. Every centimeter of ground taken by any enemy would be measured in the deaths of thousands, but I'm getting ahead of myself. It took 200 years, almost the entire Great Crusade, for the palace to be truly finished. Now that might not seem like a crazy amount of time to build such a hectic structure. After all, that fuck-off massive basilica in the middle of Barcelona has been under construction for nearly 100 years and still isn't done. However, the Imperium was pouring a massive portion of its resources, manpower, and knowledge into this. Billions of workers, millions of engineers, countless geniuses, both human and transhuman, perfectly ordered by a Primarch who excels in efficiency. They would have had around 1 billion times more building power than even China, and it still took them 200 years. Then tragically, after its magnificence was completed, the heresy broke out and Rogel immediately had to begin dismantling large chunks of it in order to replace stunning ornate sculptures and tiling with jagged metal gun platforms. He was actually quite depressed doing this, promising he would restore the palace to its former glory when Horus was defeated. The palace featured many very unique sections and structures. Its various walls and gates were famous, each one needing to be breached one by one, each one a fortress in its own right. The Ultimate Wall, Saturnine Wall, Mercy Wall, Lion's Gate, Eternity Gate, and many more are the sites of epic last stands against the traitor hordes. There were so many heroic deeds and moments that most were lost to history. The Lion's Gate spaceport was considered very important, as whoever controlled that could control reinforcements and resupply from orbit. Some of the other key locations within the palace itself include the Tower of Hegemon, which is the Custodian Guard's personal base of operations. It is so technologically sophisticated that it can also double as a backup command center to coordinate the entire defense of the palace. However, prior to the Hegemon being used, the true command center of the palace is Barb Bastion. However, this is more exposed than Hegemon, so there are contingencies to move to Hegemon if Barb falls. The palace also contains numerous infamous prison blocks. The biggest are the Dark Cells, a secret underground prison, which is the equivalent of 40k's Area 51. Full of things the custodians either can't or won't destroy, they even have an entire shield host dedicated to guarding them. There is also the Blackstone prison, which is made of Necron Blackstone mined from Cadia. They put especially dangerous criminals in there, especially Psykers, as the Blackstone nullifies their abilities. Malcador also has his own personal tower in the palace as well, called Malcador's Retreat, which features an extensive library and laboratory. Malcador was quite sentimental, so kept his tower old, worn and wooden despite it being impressively and masterfully built. He did not want it to be this gilded marble thing like the rest of the palace, he liked it to be old and wizened, like himself. The palace also featured a number of special guardians and parks. Some were projects by the Emperor and Malcador, a place of peace and beauty. Others were conservation efforts, using old seeds and genetic modification to revive extinct plant species that would be used in the eventually terraforming of Earth to return it to a verdant green and blue world once again. Tragically, all these parks and gardens were abandoned and allowed to wither and rot during the Siege of Terra due to the water and power needed to run them being redirected to help the defenders, which was pretty sad, not going to lie. The thing is, I've barely covered all the structures within the palace. There's just so many, and each one could honestly have their own video, but that covers the main more interesting ones. Now, before I go into the 2 times the palace was sieged, I want to discuss what the palace was before the siege, what it was during, and what it was after. Before the siege, it was stunning, golden, beautiful, ornate, something to look at and be awe-inspired. To put it into context, during the Horus Heresy, when it was taken apart and put back together in a significantly uglier, more practical and fortified configuration, people still looked at it with complete awe and wonder. Imagine the pyramids of Giza. You see them now and they look amazing, but when they were built they were covered in limestone and were 10 times more stunning. That is like how it was. Post-Siege of Terra, the palace was rebuilt over the centuries, and whilst a lot of its beauty was restored, it remained primarily a fortress in case it ever got attacked again. The Emperor and Malcador were gone and Rogel was full of rage and a desire for vengeance, so the rebuilding was overseen by mortal men with mortal scopes of ambition and vision. So the palace that was rebuilt, although extremely functional, is an aesthetic shadow of what it once was. It no longer stands as this hope-inspiring, stunning thing. Now it's this intimidating behemoth of a structure that radiates authority and domination. The Siege of Terra remains the most insane siege all of sci-fi has ever seen. The traitor forces had to punch their way through each and every gate, choke point, structure, all of it. Pretty much everything was mentioned. All the gates, towers, fortresses, prisons. There were thousands of battles with millions of combatants constantly raging the entire time. The initial part of the siege, which was the Legion War where 95% of the fighting was Space Marines and Guardsmen killing each other, was a battle between Perturabo and Rogel Dawn using tactics and wit. Once Purdy had done enough damage so that demons and the warp could become a factor, he was replaced with Mortarion, a move that caused Purdy and the Iron Warriors to abandon the siege in disgust. At that point, all traitor tactics vanished and it just became one big fuck-off traitor and demon Zergrush, which the Loyalists would have been able to crush if Purdy hadn't done so much damage prior. Basically, as soon as Perturabo managed to capture the spaceports, which allowed for traitor titans to be deployed from orbit, he had fulfilled his role. At that point, it wasn't even tactics or even overwhelming force that helped the traitors push the Loyalists. It was literally bullshit hacks. Terra started getting dragged into the warp, which caused doors and portals to appear everywhere that basically allowed traitors to teleport from the outer palace into the inner palace, bypassing meticulous defenses and allowing them to attack the Loyalists from behind, slaughtering entire loyal companies before they even knew what was happening. Honestly, the final inner sanctum could have held out for days if it wasn't for this. Instead, they were given mere hours, with the Emperor only just managing to kill Horus in the nick of time, causing a mass rout as all the demons were banished and Guilliman's fleet began arriving in system. The next siege of the palace, which was significantly more random and to be honest feels kind of cheap and was designed as a gimmick to try and make Chaos look tough, is when the Great Rift opened. It gave Khorne the power to dump a massive Khorne army in front of the Lion's Gate. Basically 8 mega bloodthirsters and a shitload of demons just kind of appeared, and then 4,000 custodians went to work. Nothing got penetrated, but 2,000 custodians died, and it's even said that if it wasn't for the arrival of Guilliman, then the Emperor himself would have been slain. I don't know, to me it just feels cheap. We got an entire book series about the Siege of Terra and how difficult it was for the traitors, but then boom, in 40,000 an army just appears and then is beaten within like 5 minutes. The Imperial Palace remains the beating heart of the Imperium. Almost all of its headquarters are based here, bar a couple like the Grey Knights or Sisters of Silence. As a funny note to end the video on, Mortarion was so spiteful that on his own demon world, he rebuilt the Imperial Palace as a full replica, but he's made his version 7 inches taller out of spite. No, that isn't as impressive as it sounds. Primarch demon worlds are like extensions of the Primarch, and they can just sort of will things into existence. If you take the warp away from Terra, the palace stands. If you took it away from Morty's world, his palace would crumble into dust. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then Patreon is the place to be, where I've just commissioned a new gallery of not suitable for work Battle Mace 40 million artworks, one going live per week that you can view for as little as $1 per month. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more awe-inspiring content. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.